Welcome back, All Sports WNY. We have with us Tim Graham. Tim, who's been covering the NFL. He's covering the Buffalo Bills. And this is, it's rich in Bills information because first of all, you've got the draft, which has now become, the NFL has turned into primetime television, and it's become a cottage industry unto itself.
And might be the least important thing going on with the Bills right now.
Right. Well, at least it's the most positive, I would guess. And then you have, of course, the purchase of the team with the passing of Ralph Wilson. And then you have the Jim Kelly battling cancer story. So it's 24/7 Buffalo Bills. But let's first talk about a story I had last night on my website, All Sports WNY.
Great story.
Well, thank you. But four-person voting trust, you have to get 3 of 4 votes. And these are the exact 4 people that were on the Ralph Wilson Foundation board. So there was Ralph didn't go far to pick this list, but it's his widow, Mary. It's Mary Owen, who is one of the top female sports executives now in the country with her position with the Bills, and she's on some NFL boards. And then you have Jeff Littman, who's been, in a lot of ways, I think really the power behind the throne on this team for 20 years. And then you have Eugene Dreiker, who's an attorney also with the foundation. So they have, and it's in your understanding, what do you think is their criteria for voting for the number 1 person to buy this team?
Well, that's hard to say. We just found out who the trustees are, right? Just yesterday, you were able to put that story out there. Right. And so what is their criteria? Now we need to find a way to get inside these people's heads, which we won't be able to do. The team will be sold before we have any chance of doing that. But really, Bob, I think what we've known all along to be true, not saying it's fact, but what we've known to be true, or at least a consensus belief, is that the team will be sold to the highest bidder. Now, as in buying a house, there are all kinds of ways to measure the highest bidder. I've tried to buy a couple of houses here in western New York when I was moving back from Florida, in which I had the highest bid but didn't get the house. Once because somebody offered cash, and once because the seller's broker happened to be the buyer's broker. And so there's all kinds of different ways that can judge really what is the best bid. So I do think, I would like to think, I want to believe that there will be some weight given to keeping the team in Buffalo, but I don't think it's going to outweigh the significance of the money and how the money is spent. Now, is the buyer going to do all cash? How many investors are going to be involved? Is it going to be X number of dollars up front and then the rest paid off years later, as with the Cleveland Browns, in which it was $700 million up front, the other $300 million later? So there are all kinds of different ways to measure the highest bid.
I think with Jeff Littman, it's one of those 4 votes. Certainly he understands there's a fiduciary responsibility to the Wilson estate to come up with as much, maximize the value.
Right.
But I got to believe that there's also the league. You have to make sure that the league will approve the winning bid. There are a couple people out there right now, and you've been all over this story. I mean, people like Milstein and Trump don't necessarily have great track records working with the NFL.
That's right. And here's another thing to consider. We only have to go so far back as maybe, 10 years, when Mark Hamister was approved as the Sabres owner. We remember we had a news conference which symbolically took place at a janitorial supply company in the city of Tonawanda. They made urinal cakes and things like that, and they decided to have their announcement there that Mark Hamister had been approved as the Sabres owner. The Sabres had decided to sell to him. Now he had to go to the next step, in which the NHL now needed to figure out if he really had the money, and he didn't, because the person backing him had some similar issues to what the Regis family did. So you're right. The Bills have to be very careful. If they want this sale to go smoothly, they need to do their due diligence, their vetting process, the whole thing, in selecting the right bid that can also be approved. Because if they select somebody just because they want to sell it to buyer X and the NFL doesn't approve it, then they have to start all over again.
Right. All right. I don't want to run out of time. I want to talk about the draft. It's Thursday night, first pick. Like I said, it's a major entertainment extravaganza. Bills have the 9th pick. Who do you think, or what does your gut tell you what direction they're going to go?
Well, here's where I waffle all over the place, because we hear all these reports that they might trade up. I'm skeptical that they will, because that would be a dramatic departure from what the Steelers do. And we know that Doug Whaley came up with that Steelers template. That's how he cut his teeth, how he learned how to be an NFL executive. So Does he do that? That's where I'm not quite sure. But these reports are coming from all over the place to lead you to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. If they move up, it's not going to be to draft a tackle, I don't think. I think you're looking at a Sammy Watkins type move. But if they stay at number 9, I think tackle is probably the safer bet. But there's also talk about too many tackles might be off the board by then. And a name that you and I have both talked about, Eric Ebron, will be there or should be there at number 9. I think that fits the bill for what the Bills have done with their offseason theme of getting E.J. Manuel the tools to make him look as good as possible.
Ebron is a big, fast, athletic tight end. Chandler is more of a plotting, blocking tight end.
Not a blocking tight end. He's more of he'll catch the ball in traffic, but when he's on the field, the Bills are passing because he can't do anything with the run. He can't block. But where Ebron is he's not a great blocker, but he can block.
He has that capability.
And he's great at yards after the catch, which is something Scott Chandler can't do.
The Bills won't have a shot at Khalil Mack, but it's great to watch somebody from a local team, just be rated that high. He's gone in some mock drafts as the number 1 pick overall.
Wouldn't that be fun, though, if they did trade up to get him? What a great story that would be, and how great it would be for the program, for the Mid-American Conference. Here you're looking at a conference that had never had a number 1 overall draft pick until last year. They finally had their first number 1 overall draft pick, and now they could have 2 in a row because there's a belief out there that some teams, if they had that number 1 pick, would take Khalil Mack and not Jadeveon Clowney.
Well, you look at Mack, and first of all, I got to find the shirt that he wears that makes him look so overpowering. But, he was right here in our backyard. I vividly remember Bucky Gleason and Jerry Sullivan back in the fall debating this very issue because, Jerry, of course, was talking about Kiko Alonso and Bucky was talking about Mack, and Jerry was trying to say, yeah, but this guy's in the NFL and this guy's in the MAC. Well, Mack's going to be in the NFL very soon, and certainly he's going to have the type of impact on teams I believe that Kiko had with the Bills.
Isn't that funny that a year ago or 8, 9, 10 months ago, whatever it was, that the best linebacker in Buffalo was playing out in Amherst and not out in Orchard Park? And that may be the case. Now, of course, if you were to put Khalil Mack on an NFL field, was he able to do the same things last year that Kiko? That's a fun debate to have. But I think you're looking at, based on the projections, how he's testing, the way he's getting through his interviews and really impressing scouts, you're looking at a potential super-duper star in the NFL in Khalil Mack.
Back to the Bills. What do you think their needs are outside of? We've talked about if a Matthews, if a tackle of caliber is there, I think they grab him, if not a tight end. What else do you think they want to? What do you think their mission is in this draft?
I think it's just to improve in general, but with the bent towards helping out E.J. Manuel as much as possible. They are convinced they nailed that pick. I know we've talked about that before. I've used the analogy of Casey at the bat when you're watching those belt-high fastballs come in of Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick and Nick Foles, just sitting and watching them. Nope, don't want that one. Nope, don't want that one. And now all of a sudden, you're Casey at the bat, you're down to your last pitch, and you have to swing at whatever the pitcher's throwing at you. That was what E.J. Manuel was last year's draft. He happened to be the best quarterback they deemed in a not all that great quarterback draft. So now they are determined, bound and determined to prove that they got that one right, and so they are just going to, maybe they go wide receiver. Mike Evans is a possibility. I think that they like what they have on defense. They have shored up what they needed to, even though they lost Jarris Byrd. They like Aaron Williams back there. They like Denoris Searcy and Duke Williams, and maybe this other group of guys can step up. Maybe Corey Graham even gets moved to safety. So I think that they like what they have on defense. So I think it's an offensive pick.
I think one thing they've also established in the offseason is they not only need to help E.J. Manuel, they need to help out their offensive coordinator. They've brought 2 senior guys in. Because let's face it, last year, and I've heard players talk, very vanilla offensively. I think they need to step it up a couple notches.
Yeah, not vanilla because you have a rookie, not only a rookie, but a rookie who missed valuable time in the preseason with a knee injury and then during the season. His development was stunted 3 times. But Nate Hackett, and this was an issue that I brought up to Doug Marrone even in training camp, but what are you going to do if things don't go well for your quarterback? Nate Hackett is also the quarterback's coach. He's the offensive coordinator, and he's up in the booth. So the guy's up in the booth. What's happening on the sidelines? Who's helping this guy? And Doug Marrone said, well, if it ever gets to be a problem, I'll settle him down. Well, he has a game to manage.
Right.
So the Bills have gone out and brought in new a quarterbacks coach and a senior offensive assistant. They are really, not only with the players, like you mentioned, Bob, they're putting all sorts of supporting cast around E.J. Manuel to maximize whatever he can do, and they're going to find out. If things don't work out this year, then I guess you know.
Well, like any first-time staff, and this goes in business too, you don't know what you don't know until you've been through it once.
Right.
And now they know where they needed to beef it up. Tim, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Where are you going to be? Where are you going to be Thursday night?
I'll be in Orchard Park. Jay Skursky is going to be in Radio City Music Hall to cover Khalil Mack because, let's face it, he's going to be the highest drafted player to ever come out of UB, maybe number 1 overall. So we'll be covering that, and then Mark Gaughan and I will be out in Orchard Park with Jerry Sullivan.
So Jay's beautiful wife and infant son is going to allow him out of town for a night?
Maybe he's escaping.
Yeah, maybe he'll get a full night's sleep for once. Tim, it's so great having you on the show. Thanks so much, and
Thanks, Bob.
have fun at the draft.
Thank you.
We'll be back. We're going to talk to Christian Laettner via telephone right after this on All Sports Western New York.